Hi, I'm Gene Kelly, president of the American Gunsmithing Institute, and I have the opportunity to interview another one of our successful students, Rusty Mooney, and he's from Bigelow, Arkansas. Rusty's got an interesting story, and I think it'll apply to many of you, so let's listen in. Rusty, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
All right, great. Rusty, first off, give us a little background on yourself. What do you do for a living, or what were you doing before you got started gunsmithing?
So I work for a major broadcast company. I'm the manager of RF systems for them. Got an electronics background. Been in that industry for about 25, 30 years, and have been in the Navy Reserve since I graduated from high school. And I am wrapping that up, finishing up a 31-year career, actually within the next couple of weeks. And it started trying to figure out, well, what am I going to do to fill that time? I've always been passionate about firearms. It's probably the one thing that I would consider myself a fanatic about in life. Just in their works of art, their tools, it's an interesting thing to me. And I thought, well, what can I do to kind of parlay that into, some supplementary income, something to do as I, approach full retirement. And my father told me about American Gunsmithing Institute. I guess he had followed the Penn Foster trail through and, found you guys, and he suggested that I look at you guys. And I did, and I thought, well, this is a pretty interesting way of doing it. I had my doubts about how much you could actually learn just from the video-based training, and it turns out it's like anything else. It's what you put into it. If you put the effort into it and you watch it for the sake of learning the curriculum rather than just passing the test, turns out you can learn quite a bit from it. So that's what brought me here.
Absolutely. So now you got started not too long ago, correct? I think it was this year.
That's correct.
I think, wasn't it, or was it last year? Oh,
it was late last year.
Okay. All right. So in that amount of time, which right now we're looking at about 9 months from when you first enrolled, kind of tell me about your experience then. I know you were skeptical when you enrolled. Why don't you tell us a little more about that?
Okay. So I guess I started with pistols, handguns, and, I started watching it. And at first, the breadth of it was just amazing, and there was a whole lot of machinist work involved in, the difference in something working and something not working could be at, 10,000ths of an inch. And that really intrigued me. I had no idea. And so I took a pause from that, and I did the machine shop course, the machine shop theory course, and loved every minute of it. I mean, the stuff I was able to learn in that, I augmented it with some Navy training courses that I had available, and, just was like a sponge when it came to it. And once I kind of understood the things that Bob Dunlap was talking about, he's take 10,000ths off here, and then, especially in the 1911, it's that cause and effect chain, right? You want to change a barrel length. Now, all of a sudden, you've got to do some stuff to the barrel hood potentially, or now the barrel's bottoming out, and just the interaction and the raw genius of it. It's the genius is in the simplicity, and you look at it and you say, man, this is awesome. So I finished the machine shop course, and I jumped back into handguns and finished it. And then now I'm about halfway through shotguns, and I had no idea, Gene, that a shotgun was that complicated. And it truly is a timing thing, right? It truly is. The difference in working and not working is, 10,000ths of an inch in a lot of cases. And so I don't know. It's awesome. Because, if you, like I said, if you watch the videos with the intent of learning everything that he's trying to teach, and then, taking your firearm and taking it apart, putting it back together, seeing the pitfalls that he talks about, then you can really get a lot of information out of it. And I really like the idea of design, function, repair, because in my industry, you can't fix something if you don't know how it works,
Yes.
you know, and I watch people they get wrapped around the axle trying to solve a problem because they don't understand how the system is supposed to function. So I really enjoy that part of it. I think that you should be commended for having that approach to teaching.
Well, thank you for that. The design, function, and repair is truly what makes somebody an actual gunsmith, not just a part swapper. Because if you don't know the cause and effect, and you can't identify what kind of systems it's using, whether that be feed system, extraction system, firing pin, ejector, whichever it is, sear, lockup, and we teach those systems so clearly, and that's what Bob does so well. And, I went through Bob's class when I was a teenager, late teens, and I've been a couple of years ago. And, that's helped me my entire life, not just with guns and gunsmithing, but just solving problems in just about anything. Having that, knowing to use the critical thinking skills to go about diagnosing something and learning systems, so that it doesn't matter whether I've seen the gun before. Being able to look at it and just go, wow, I know what this system is using. I know what it should be doing. Here's the failure point. Okay, I know what I'm going to do. Now, I do want to make it clear to everybody, you don't have to be a machinist to be a gunsmith, but that machining knowledge really helps. And Daryl Holland, I'm sure you would agree, is a phenomenal teacher of the machining.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. It's the idea of knowing how that works. If you didn't have any understanding of the complexity of one of those operations, then, maybe you go down the rabbit hole, so to speak, working on a problem. I remember in one of, in the first section of Pivot Barrel Shotgun, Bob Dunlap is talking about the three methods that are used to fix a firearm based on, honestly, what it's worth to the individual that's asking you to fix it. And, it's kind of a good, better, best. He uses a more colorful description of it, but it's a good, better, best. And having that understanding of the machine shop theory to realize, yeah, I know why I wouldn't want to do this on a firearm that maybe costs $50. Yeah, it may be an heirloom to that customer, but probably not worth a couple $100 that you may have to put into it to do, a world-class job like you would do on a classic double or something. Yeah, so you're right. That's the part of it that that's the takeaway. If you get into machining, so be it. If you have a passion for that and you get into it, great. But it's the understanding of it that really serves you well going through this curriculum.
Well, and a couple of points you made there. Bob Dunlap, who is the Grandmaster, he was my sensei, if you will, my instructor. And what I did as founder of the American Gunsmithing Institute was extract all that knowledge from him, but not just him, also Daryl Holland, like you said, with machining and the custom rifle building, Gene Shuey with all of the custom work he's done on rifles and pistols and the bluing and metal refinishing and all the different things. So we've taken literally hundreds of years of firearm experience, gunsmithing experience, and brought that into this concentrated course. But I'll warn everybody that hasn't yet been through it, Bob is a colorful character, and there's a bunch of Bobisms, which you'll either love or hate, but he does teach you and teach you deeply if you can grasp, as he said, those systems. One other thing that is important for people to know, he talked about measurements, 10,000ths of an inch and so on. One of the cool things that Daryl did right at the machine shop course at the beginning was to sit down and explain to everybody, okay, so what is 1,000th of an inch, right? I mean, they might know sort of, but really kind of, was that useful to you?
Yeah, I can tell you that I had crossed paths with some people in the Navy that were machinery repairmen, which is what the Navy calls their machinists. And they think in thousands. So when you have a conversation with them, they don't, they won't say 0.02, they'll say 20 thousandths. And so it was something that I learned early on, but I never really had a grasp of why it was important to to reference things based on a thousandth of an inch, it becomes a whole lot. It's a language, right? And it's a common language for machinists, so it's a whole lot easier to get a point across than giving someone a fraction, or saying 1/10 of an inch or something like that. It's more stuff your mind has to process, and then you lose sight of the fact that your goal is to be accurate down to that thousandth. So if you say 0.1, then everybody all of a sudden thinks that 100,000th is good enough, and maybe it's not. As we know, it's certainly not in gunsmithing.
Yeah, right, exactly. So the point I wanted to make there is, don't fear, guys. We actually teach you all that. So if you get involved with each level of the program adds more information. In fact, you start off at just the real basic. Tell us about that story and what changed your mind and what you did.
Well, I can give you an anecdote about one of the first firearms that I worked on. I had an AR-15 platform, and it had an A2 front sight on it, and it was for a young man, and a young boy, actually. He was 11 years old. And it was a little intimidating having that big sight up there. And I thought, well, what if we put a gas block up there and made it a flat top and, just gave him an optic of some kind? Mm-hmm. So took the front sight off, and of course you got to line the gas holes up. Well, I wanted to save the hand guard. So I put the gas block on, and the hand guard added 30 thousandths of an inch to the length of that fore end. Well, that 30 thousandths was enough that the gas hole didn't line up exactly right. So I took the rifle outside. I test fired it. It would fire. It failed to eject. It would extract, but it wouldn't eject. So I did that a couple of times, and I said, I know what's going on here. And so I took my micrometer and I started measuring it, and I realized that I had not accounted for that 30 thousandths of an inch on the end of the handguard. Mm-hmm. No rocket science there, right? It's basic measurement tools, and you measure it and you say, yeah, that's a pretty little gas hole. It's probably not lined up exactly right. Right. So I didn't do anything fancy. I didn't have a mill at the time. I just had a belt sander. So I took it and I scribed it at 30 thousandths of an inch, and I just sanded it down until I hit the scribe mark. Mm-hmm. And put it back on the rifle, put everything back together, and it cycled just fine.
So you made a couple of really good points there. One is, because you had studied design and function, you were able to diagnose that it was starving for gas pressure, because it was extracting the round far enough but shoving it right back in the chamber, or creating a jam, one of the two. And so that's pretty cool, right? You were able to boom like that, because that's the design, function, repair in action of what we teach. Second is you made the point that you were able to do the repair without owning a mill, because you knew what you were doing. And of course, we always recommend, when anybody's sanding, filing, or doing anything on a part, that they go slow, because it's easy to take off. It's harder to put back on.
That's right.
But a lot of guys are intimidated. I mean, I see your lathe behind you there, but most gunsmithing doesn't require that they have a big lathe or a big mill. And you're just demonstrated it right there, that you can get started basic tools, not a whole massive shop. Now, you started in the course, and that was in October, and we're about only 8 months later here, and you had gone from just the level 1 course, which you said you were somewhat skeptical about, but you changed your mind, and you called in and you upgraded. You want to tell me about that?
Yeah. So the two things, we touched on one with the design, function, repair. The other thing that I didn't mention is, and I'm going to be blunt here, when you start the course, there's a lot of fundamental stuff when you're talking about engagement, positive engagement, negative, neutral engagement, that kind of stuff. And they spend a lot of time talking about that. Now, had I gone into the next level and spent another 4 hours talking about that same stuff, I probably would have lost interest, just because it was so repetitive. But the way it works is you teach it once and you build upon it, you know. So the fundamentals in the handgun portion of the course, you talk a lot about engagement, you sear engagement and trigger engagement and stuff like that. So then the next time you address it, let's say you're talking about a shotgun, you just touch on it, right? Because at that point, you're supposed to understand when he says it's got to be negative to neutral engagement, you just know what that means. And, you know, the first one I watched when I went to the website and I looked at some of the sample stuff that you had, you know, Bob has these guns and they got big cutouts on them and you can actually see how they work. So I'm thinking, well, but no real guns got the cutouts. How are you supposed to see this engagement? Well, he talks about how you do that because, you know, for every action, there's a reaction, right? And so if you've got the proper engagement, when you pull that trigger, that hammer's going to come back just a hair before it goes forward. So he teaches you how, right, I'm sorry, positive engagement. And so he teaches you how you can see that without having the cutaways or, you know, taking I don't know, a camera that you can run up in there and see what's going on. So because of that, I said, well, there's something to this. So I went ahead and upgraded and, man, all of the armorers courses and, you know, being able to just pull out a DVD and look at, you know, if you get one and you got it apart and you can't figure out how this particular spring goes back in, you watch an armorer's course and you go, oh, I should have known that. If you think about how it works, you think that's where it's got to go, right?
So I checked and you ended up with the Enhanced Master, which has got not only the level 1 design function repair, which we'll both agree is absolutely the bedrock, right? I mean, that's the must have. And you can start smithing just with that. That's the level 1. But Rusty jumped all the way up to the Enhanced Master, which included the next levels. And I mean, everything from the machining and the welding course, which is amazing because that is how you can learn to put metal back and save parts, not have to go out and buy parts. If you have broken things, you can fix it. It's amazing. If you're doing good TIG work, we teach all that. Plus, we teach all the gas, MIG, TIG, stick, and other things so you can build shop equipment, do work for other people along those lines too. The full machining shop course, like you talked about, all the custom building of rifles and pistols. There's a number of courses there, refinishing courses, a whole course on how to run your business, of which I've recently upgraded, and with a number of videos, over 30 hours of video training on how to run your business. And then there's also, as he talked about, all the Armors course. You get the whole Armors course library. And you get like 3 expansion modules that brings in another, you know, like 65 handguns that we cover and dozens of rimfires and shotguns. So you got the whole ball of wax, which is cool. And you want to talk about when you run into a problem, going and finding with you know, and by the way, we just upgraded the index and you're going to get a copy of the new index, which will make it even faster. But I assume that you probably have jumped around when you needed it for a repair to be able to see something on a gun.
Absolutely. So I was telling Sue yesterday when I was talking to her that I started a notebook as I'm sitting through the course material. And if there's something that Bob says that you know, you get in your mind, that's going to bite me, you know, that's going to come up. I'm going to see that. And so I would make a note in there about where it was, what DVD it was, and where it was on the DVD, just generally speaking, so that I could easily go back to it. And you reference this index. The index is great because if you just don't know, if it's something that you haven't gotten to yet, and you know, you pull out your index and you say, okay, that's on shotgun DVD number 9, and it's about 27 minutes in or whatever. That comes in real handy. And one, I'll point out on the Enhanced Master, the diamond in the rough there, as far as I'm concerned, is that a Firearms Appraiser course. That in of itself is, that's a whole industry. And you know, a guy or a gal could make a living doing that. I see these local estate sale people, and they'll have firearms laid out, and sometimes I'll look at them and go, yeah, okay, that's a little undervalued. And it came with a bunch of audio CDs, as you know.
Yeah.
And I was on a road trip one time, and I listened to every one of those audio CDs. And anybody that's interested in firearms is going to recognize a lot of those names as big players in the industry.
Yeah.
And I told my children, I've got a 16-year-old daughter, and I told her, I said, anytime that you feel interested in this, I will pay for you to go through this course, because it's a marketable skill. And not even just for firearms, it's for any antiquities or anything that is, old and worth something, and it takes someone that can appraise it and apply and quantify it. Anybody can say, well, this gun's worth $1,000, but you got to be able to quantify it, right?
Yeah.
So that's the neat part about that course.
Thanks for mentioning it. Let me just give a little bit on that for the rest of people that don't know. It's also available separately, but it's included with the Enhanced Master, and that's a certified firearms appraiser course. And what we teach you on that, you've learned so much through the gunsmithing already, so you can identify does the gun work properly, what's the finishes like, does, so on, the mechanical aspect. But this teaches you how to actually appraise it legally. And there's, forums that walk you right through it. There's a whole notebooks. There's the audios where I interviewed some of the top people in the entire country, from the auction houses, the NRA Museum, these are friends of mine, and so on. And then how to go about step-by-step the appraisal and so on. But there's appraisals needed for estates, as you said, for tax purposes, when people are donating firearms to a museum or any other purpose, to the Boy Scouts or whatever it is. There's divorce situations, unfortunately. There's many different situations where somebody may need to have their firearms appraised, even just for their own purposes. For, like, we've had all these fires out here in California, and the people that didn't have appraisals, it's an argument. What was that gun worth? And as you guys know, a small variance on a firearm can make it worth a lot more money because it's rarer, and or if it has provenance of some sort where it was owned by somebody important. I mean, all these little details, it's all covered in that course. But as you said, it's an industry of what a great add-on. It's a lot of fun. And we have some guys, one guy, James Miller, he is making more money doing appraisals. He is charged as much as $40,000 for a single collection. And he has two guys working for him part-time even on it. And he's got more work. He's like 8 months out on work, because once the word gets around, that's amazing. I've got another guy up in Idaho that is advertises the appraisals, but end up where he makes a lot of the money on the back end is actually, since they trust him on the appraisals, he now gets to liquidate the collections for them. So he's making money both ways and doing a great service for somebody. So anyway, thanks for bringing that up. I totally spaced. There's so much in that Enhanced Master course. But a lot of the bits and pieces are available. People only wanted this or this. But I want to just keep emphasizing design, function, repair. Basic level 1, got to have it. Or you can do custom work and you don't even know what you're doing wrong on the systems. Am I right? Is that?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Like I said, I'm in the shotgun course now, and there are confounding factors, if you will, that occur that if you didn't understand their impact on a firearm's performance. Mm-hmm. One of them that they pointed out that I never really thought about. He said in his colorful way, he said, Americans are grippers. And he was talking about gripping the forend of a shotgun and how now the shotgun has to accelerate not just the weight of the forend, but the weight of your hand and the force that you're exerting on it by gripping it so hard. And, he's got a very interesting segment in there about how to repair a barrel lug if it breaks off of the barrel. And, the tempering that has to occur if you're going to do any hot work on a barrel, and the ramifications of not doing it, is he's just real blunt about it, and I can appreciate that, because that's one that sticks in your mind when someone says it's not a matter of, he said it's going to happen, and it's probably going to happen the first time you shoot it. And so you know, just having that knowledge of a guy that has done it for so many years, telling you don't do this. And, you know, here's the one circumstance where you would put heat to a barrel, but you got to draw it back or it's going to blow up the first time you do it. And it just, his just straightforward way of putting that stuff out is just, I don't know. I don't know that you could have found anybody any better.
Well, you know, Bob, like you said, I mean, he not only did gunsmithing, he's one of the few guys that was running a full gunsmithing shop at the same time teaching it. So he was seeing all this. Plus, over his career, he was responsible for repairing over 250,000 firearms because he was doing warranty work for half a dozen different companies. And even if he didn't personally do the work, like when I was working for him, he had to go and sign off everything that we did just to make sure we were, you know, because we were still learning. We were new guys. And we'd been through all the gunsmithing stuff, but you still, you know, there was a benefit of him doing it. But he was responsible as a point. So he's seen more than just about anybody else on the planet. And then when you teach it as well, you actually have to think it through more than just understanding it and doing it, right? I mean, you've got to explain it to somebody in such a way. And I'm just so glad we captured this. Now, some people might look at this and say, oh, that's older video. You got an old video there. This is the grand master you're learning from directly. I mean, it's like if you were, you know, learning martial arts and you could either learn from some guy that was 6 generations down from Bruce Lee, or you could watch grainy old instructional videos where Bruce Lee is personally teaching you first generation. Which would you rather have? I'd rather have that, right? And that's kind of what we got here. You know, this is just not replaceable. It's irreplaceable. Bob's almost 80. He can't film and do the stuff like he used to. We've kept adding to it, upgrading. And of course, you've met Ken now, right, through videos anyway. And Ken Brooks is his understudy and now doing a lot of the instruction. Also, have you used any of our support, like with Jack or Ken or anything like that?
I went into a GCA meeting and I had a question. I don't know if you recall. I was there. Something came up about measuring the length of a shotgun barrel, and so I asked the question on the forum there, and we had a nice discussion about, you know, the proper way to do it, and you know, erring on the side of safety versus you know, getting it right down to the you know. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to
I've used that. Yeah, that's exactly right. So I've used that aspect of it. I'm intending at some point to use my because I guess everybody should know that the course also comes with some time that you can spend with one of the master gunsmiths at their shop and work with them and see kind of some shortcuts and that stuff. I haven't been able to do that yet, but I'm really looking forward to that. I want to get better though, because I can imagine somebody working for a guy like Bob Dunlap. You'd certainly have to make sure you had exhausted all your resources before you go to him with the problem and say, hey, Bob, I can't figure this out. And, you know, he gives you that whole Lamont, you big dummy thing and says you missed this. It's just, you know, basic stuff. And you just kind of scratch your head and go, ooh, I'll never do that again. You know, so I want to get a little bit wiser with it, get a little bit more experience under my belt, because then I can ask the good questions and I can maximize the use of that time versus, you know, saying, so how do you turn that lathe on? Or, you know, how do you take that fore end off of that gun? You know, that's my approach to it is, you know, I want to at least be able to ask good questions so that it's beneficial to me and maybe even beneficial to them. Who knows?
Well, let me hit a couple points there. One, you're right. We give a certificate for a hands-on class that you can take with one of our instructors. Sometimes it's Bob teaching, sometimes it's Ken Brooks, sometimes it's Daryl Holland or Gene Shuey. It depends upon, you know, what the course is. Number one. And those are week-long courses, and you go to a classroom setting where the instructors are. So you're in a small group. Usually there's never more than 10 students in a classroom. Oftentimes there's only a handful. And we'd love to see more of our students make use of that, but that is a resource. In addition, we have Jack Landis as our technical services manager, and you can call in and talk to Jack. We have a number of videos that we posted on different, things, and we're continuing to develop, like, where do I get these supplies? I mean, we're your huge shortcut, and that's what we're about, is systemizing the knowledge and providing it to you as a huge shortcut. So you don't have to spend 20 years learning this game. You can be gunsmithing literally. Well, I mean, you've been at it only 8 months and you're already gunsmithing. So, literally you can get started in 30, 60, 90 days. And we even give you the information how to get your FFL if you're going to start charging for your work. So there's all of that, and then more to technical support beyond that. So I will say, guys, there's no real dumb questions, but most of the time, our guys are not going to just answer you directly. What we want to do is we want to make you think. So if you were asking a question about extraction or lockup or whatever, they might say, okay, tell me what you know. Okay, and all right, so what would change if you did this? What would you change if you do that? Because we just give you the answer, and this goes all the way to the beginning when Bob first created this system. He was teaching gunsmithing students, and he said, I realized that if I just give them an answer of how to fix problem A, they're clueless when problem B happens, right? So if I teach them the systems and they really understand the systems, they can solve problem A, B, C, D, etc. And that's what oftentimes an instructor will do. They won't just give you the answer. They're going to help you work a little bit. Now, some things they might just give you the answer if it's a straight up question and we didn't cover it anywhere in the course. But I'll tell you what, especially with your enhanced master, there's darn little we didn't cover. I mean, heat treating, spring making, as I said before, metal finishing of several types. It goes on and on. Well, man, I tell you what, Rusty, you've given me a chunk of your time, and I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to say to the people listening, or encourage them if they've got fears?
I'll say give it a shot. I had my doubts at first, and I gave it a shot and found out it really is a viable learning mechanism, and I would challenge anybody else out there that wants to get involved in it. You give it a shot. The worst you can do is learn something, right?
Well, I guarantee that, and we guarantee our customers, our students, satisfaction with it. And so keep going, Rusty. You are just beginning, and you're way down the runway already. I can see taking off, but there's so much fun ahead of you, so much learning ahead of you. Make use of all the resources. And again, I want to thank you for your time, but I want to congratulate you on stepping forward and living your dream. That's huge, man. All right.
I appreciate that.
Thank you for your time, sir.
All right, sir. Thank you much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.